Let's see, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, start recording. All right, very good. So thank you everybody for joining us today. We're lucky to have Joel here, Master Editor in Chief of the co-op. He's gone through a lot of editing process, and today he's going to share with us a lot of his editing and writing tools and tricks and tips that he's been able to, kind of work through over the last few years. And he's going to do a lot of this. Is going to be very much a working meeting, so feel free to take notes. But we'll also have the YouTube video up on the co-op's website after this a little bit later. And Joel, I don't think there's any slides. You're just going to do a pure show and tell, right? Okay, yeah. So there's nothing to download, so I'll only be re-watching. So we are recording. So Joel, feel free to take it away. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them into the chat, and maybe I'll chime in and ask them for you. Or if there's questions along the way, just come off mute and feel free to ask Joel. So Joel, it's all yours.
All righty. So I guess the biggest lesson I've learned over the past few years with editing is there's no easy way. There's the hard way and the harder way. Just picked up some tips along the way, a lot of them from other folks in the co-op, and so just want to pass along. Hopefully it'll be helpful to you. And some of, I have it listed as editing and writing tools, because I think most of us do both. And again, some of the tools, as you use them, might actually be helpful in the future just in writing. Some of the things that it picks up, whether in grammar or some of those things. So the first thing we'll talk about is Grammarly. Let me ask, and just you can put it in the chat or whatever, has anyone here never used Grammarly or not really familiar with it? Okay, so we've got at least one. Now, there's free, which is good, and there's subscription. And I don't remember who suggested it to me originally, but their suggestion was try the free one, see how you like it. And what do we got here? Why is, hang on a minute, give me a second there. No, that's not what I want. You don't need my email. Trying to pull up my, it's not coming up. Weird. Oh, there we go. Okay. So just the Grammarly website, and if you want to try it right there, you can try it for free, and it'll walk you through. If you go there, then it'll pull up another screen, and it gives you actually your costs and all of that. If you take this down to one person, it's $12.50 a month if you do it on an annual basis, the not free one. And then if you want to try it, then you'll click on the button there. Now, Grammarly isn't the only one. It's the only one I'm really familiar with, but there are other grammar checks at different costs. So you can look, and the main difference between the free and the subscription. I started with the free, and the subscription, as you probably can figure out, is a lot more detailed, I guess we could say. It goes more in depth and gives you more more screening, I guess you could call it. Now, I'll pull up a couple of different documents as we go along that I have at various points for running through Grammarly. And there's some adjustments you can make depending on what you're looking for. Setting goals and setting issues. And give me a minute and this will all make a little more sense. Now this is a full, well, it's actually not the full book, but this is an earlier version of one of Sue's books. It's probably 8 months back, 6 months back. So it wasn't completed yet, and certainly not the editing. What I want to point out for a minute here, this is the paid version. Down here, 1,598 issues. The first time that I ran it through the paid version, it was more than double that. And I kind of freaked out a little bit. One of the things you need to keep in mind when you're working with Grammarly is it will pull up every single instance. For example, here we have adding a comma. Consider adding a comma. Now, everywhere that it shows, and you'll see here when I clicked on that one, it highlights after, so you can locate it in the text. Just because it suggests a comma there doesn't necessarily mean you want one there. By the rules of grammar, it could go there, but it may not work with the text you've written, be it dialogue or descriptive. Just because by the rules of grammar, it might go there, you'll realize that sometimes when you put a comma in, it changes the context. So one of the, maybe you could call it downsides of Grammarly is it becomes a little bit tedious when you're going through, because you really need to look at every comment to see, is that something that I want to look at? And probably a high percentage of them you'll just pass on. Sometimes something pops up, they go, wow, I didn't think about it that way. A suggestion that I could make is, and it becomes a little less onerous or intimidating, is don't try to do your entire manuscript in one shot. Generally, the way I've been working it, reading through Sue's stuff, is before I even turn on Grammarly, I'll go through and do my first pass of a number of chapters. Now, everybody has their own system. So I'll do maybe 4 chapters, and then the two of us will sit down and review any of the edits I've made, and then I'll send Sue off so she isn't looking over my shoulder, and then I'll turn Grammarly on and look through those 4 chapters. Now, let me pull up. What I did here on this document is, it's only 2 pages, so I just pulled out some excerpts just to give you some examples, some idea of how this program works. It would be nice if it was heuristic, if it was a learning program, so it would begin to learn your style, but that probably would involve artificial intelligence and would make it cost prohibitive. But again, here is the first one we'll look at. It suggests removing the comma. What I've kind of gotten in the habit of, I guess you could say, is if it shows removing a comma as unnecessary, I've found that virtually all of those are fine. Removing those commas, because we sometimes are of those that add too many. So all you need to do, instead of going in and deleting it, by the way, I made you probably figured it out, but the cursor really huge just makes it easier to point what I'm talking about. So you've got Connie here highlighted. If you click on the highlighted area in the recommendation, it does it for you. You change your mind, you can just go back and undo and put it back. So whichever way you want to go with it. And then, you can still use your undo buttons. Redo and undo. Now, here's another one. Sometimes it'll give you a suggestion for, again, let me bring that back. Rephrasing a sentence. They're not all good, some of them are. So this one originally was, he was killed in a botched kidnapping attempt as part of an aborted coup by some members of the common cast. Now their suggestion was remove members of the common cast and just put common cast members. But by doing that, there's a slight change in interpretation. So that was one that maybe we'll elect not to use. If you like it, you don't have to retype it, just replace with this version. If you don't like it, there's a little trash can here. Just click on that. Yep. Sorry, it's a little hard with the with this weird giant cursor. Oh well. Hang on a minute. There we go. Okay. So you can just make it go away. And then it will come off of the count on the bottom. The other advantage of that is, that when you go back looking through it, you don't have as many. Now you can go through one at a time if you've got a section where there aren't a lot, there's a down arrow, so you can go to the next one, next one, next one, next one. Yeah, I can't seem to make that one go away, so we'll just leave it alone for now. When you want to move down, you have to scroll in the text. Over here, it won't move. You have to do it over here. This is another fairly common one that I see that we come up with, is here it's suggesting over here, they call that the comma splice, splitting it into two sentences. Probably not, period. They would have done it, and then again, you can accept it or reject it, use a semicolon, or just a period, whatever works for you. Now here's another one. Pharmaceuticals, and appears repeatedly in this text, but in this context of the section this is taken from, it really is the word that we wanted to use. it'll suggest some, and sometimes, and we'll get to a couple of those, it'll highlight a word and say the average reader may not know what this is. And again, you can decide whether that's something that's common knowledge. Here's another one where it highlighted MO. And this is a section that the cops are talking, modus operandi. And if it sees others that are not either capitalized or punctuated the same, it may give you that suggestion. I tend to not look at that because I've found that occasionally it's finding other things that aren't really the exact thing, and you don't want to just accept that without checking on it. Another thing it's good at finding, I wish I could get this to go away, but you know what, give me a second. Well, you know what, doesn't matter, that'll make it close. Okay, hyphenated words. Now, again, like the rest of the things, it's not 100%. It's hyphenated words is something else you got to kind of pay attention to before you accept or reject, because it's a Range Rover like ours. Possibly a comma should go there, but it's not Rover-like. It's not Range Rover-like. So again, that's one of the things you need to watch. Here's another remove the comma, another remove the comma. Late night, add a hyphen. You like it, click on it, it'll just rewrite it right there with the hyphen. Hard to read sentence. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I think they may underestimate your average readers. Sometimes you look at it and you go, yeah, I guess I should simplify that. So again, that's something that you need to really watch. Here's, again, just from having done the editing also on the anthology, some common things that sometimes, we do without realizing is maybe putting the punctuation, changing something or putting the punctuation in the wrong place. So here there's a comma after the question mark. So there, that removed it. And again, some of these, like this one, the perfect timing, it may just be a style difference. So take a look at what they're suggesting and either go with it or not. Of course, it's your stuff. Now, this is a real common one. And actually, this is something that I had asked Susan about a while ago. Here you've got come on kids, and it's suggesting before kids. It could be kids. It could be a name of somebody that technically, I guess, a comma goes before that. And that's one of the things that maybe you want it there, maybe you don't. So that's one of the things, again, why I always go through and look at all the recommendations. And yeah, it is time consuming. Another common issue, extra spaces. So here it appears you have an extra space, and now it's gone. By the way, what I probably should do is there we go. Okay, I had the review function on, so that's why it was keeping those things. So just for this. Here on back, it found an extra comma. So now it's gone. Now, another one that common types of things that it finds is excess words. So here we had the sentence, he was misguided. You'll find there is much to be learned, and it's saying take out there is. You'll find much to be learned from. So that would be a reasonable edit of excess verbiage. This one, commonly used phrase, in spite of, which correctly should be despite. So quick, easy fix. So, and here are, I won't go through all of them, but another comma. Now here's another one that it's looking to correct, but it's not really understanding the sentence. He started to come to. He was unconscious and he's starting to come to. So it's thinking to them, to her, to him. No, none of the above. So that would be one that we would just not even leave. And again, without readjusting the size of this thing, I don't know why, but I can't do the trash can, but if you click on the trash can, it goes away. You can click on the word that's underlined, and here again, HH blood, that actually is an actual real rare blood type. And it's looking for, it's, what do we got here? Okay, somebody, who is this? Lori. Okay, yeah, now keep in mind, this is not a final version. And Lori asked, on the princess responded line, shouldn't there be a closing set of quotes? I will say sure, because I don't remember that sentence off the top of my head. But again, it's not perfect. It doesn't necessarily find everything. It usually finds things like that, but not necessarily. No guarantee. And here we missed a period. The sentence ends is in cult, and the new sentence is maybe, but there was a period missing. So once you make that correction, then it unhighlights that word. Sentence fragment. Just because it's a sentence fragment doesn't mean it's not okay. So again, you have to use your own judgment on these things. And here's one that I brought in on purpose because again, it uses maybe arcane, maybe regular rules of grammar, but it rephrased and it no longer means the same thing. The way it originally reads, I wrote my first book and, as they say, was swept off my feet. But the change that they're recommending is, as they say, I wrote my first book. No, that's not the same thing. So again, it sometimes is tedious going through it, but, and here's another one. At the end of the sentence, gave the Templar gold to the undead in exchange for protection of his heirs, as opposed to just to protect his heirs. But you might, in this instance, and I think that is how we left it, wanted the exchange, the trade-off made very clear there. And here, that's another example, and I just typed that one in, of it wanting a comma after Miranda. That's one of those that maybe you like, maybe you don't. I tend to want to use commas sparingly. If we sprinkle too many throughout, I think it becomes distracting. But everybody has a style. Everybody, has their own opinion on those, and that's fine. And why did I put this last one in here? Oh, this will often come up. Three similar sentences in a row. And it often will want you to combine sentences or change it around. And sometimes you look at it and you go, yeah, okay, that kind of makes sense. And this is one that I actually wrote for this because it does sound kind of not that great the way it's written. So yeah, it should be rewritten, but sometimes you have a number of short sentences in a row, and all I'm saying is that's why you have to look at it and see what is it, what are you doing, what are you writing, what are you saying, and what's your style. There was one other one here. This is another one that it will often pull up. In this little segment here, you only have one character. Or it also sometimes will come up where you have two characters, and I've seen that where there's a male and a female character. And it will say the word he appears repeatedly. So what it wants you to do is maybe substitute the person's name. Again, that's something that maybe you'll do, maybe you won't, but don't be surprised if that pops up. Or especially if there's two characters, and again, using the example of male or female, where you may not have used he a lot, but you may get the message unclear antecedent. Not clear who he is, who that is. Well, if there's only two people in the scene, not too difficult to figure that out. All right. Now, down at the bottom here, we have 31 issues in this 900 words. And at the beginning, I said we have goals and issues. So what does that mean? You have the ability to adjust levels, I guess you could say. Now, adjust goals. Let's look at that. General audience, knowledgeable audience, expert audience. Usually, generally that refers to vocabulary that you're using. And right now we've got 31 issues. If we change it to expert and give it a second, okay, there was no change there. And again, no significant change. Now, if we had the whole text and made those changes, that number would likely change. I did this short 2-page excerpt because, at least on the computer with the resources I have, when Grammarly goes through to scan the document, it can take a minute or two, and I just didn't want to waste the time on that. Formality, slang, casual uses. Again, we've got 31 now. If we go to formal, it should be changing. I don't know why it isn't. When I did it before, it did change. Okay. must have changed something in the edits that because it changed the number there. When I changed it to formality earlier, this number went from 31 to about 37 because it found a number of again, you've got slang colloquialisms that it tends to try to filter out. Same thing on down here, general audience, technical audience, casual audience. So it kind of changes the level of what it's looking for. And I can't give you a specific description of what each of those various options does, but it's something you can play with and see if you want to change it. This is the settings. These are the settings I tend to use. You know, I don't want to get into, you know, if you go up to expert or knowledgeable, it may skip over some things that you might want to look at and think about rephrasing. Now, issues. Correctness, clarity, engagement. So what does that do? Correctness, spelling, grammar, and punctuation. If we turn this off, then some of those things at that level, it will no longer be scanning for. So we went from 11 down to 20. And if we turn it back on, you can see some of the rephrasing, some of the splitting sentences, rewrite the sentence. Those are some of the things that it will no longer bring to your attention. So again, you have to decide, do you want that on all the time or part of the time or none of the time? But just be aware, if you turn it off, it will come up with less things. Clarity, now that's dropped a significant number out. A lot of commas it no longer looks for. Rewriting sentences, it does stay there, but also it will do less suggesting different words, simpler words. Usually, you know, like pharmaceuticals, well, drugs. Well, that would have dropped out here. And engagement, quite frankly, that pretty much eliminates everything. So that's not terribly helpful to turn off. All right. Any questions on any of that stuff we've gone through up to here? Because we'll be switching off of Grammarly now. All right. Okay, Word. Does anyone, just out of curiosity, anybody here not use Word? Oh, somebody asked here, what is deactivated? That will essentially turn off all of those filtering functions, which, you know, you could just not have Grammarly on. All right. I saw a word, me not. Hang on, it's blocked here. Who is that? Andy. Okay. So it looks like, yeah, we may have a couple, but just about everybody does. Now the review function is very helpful, and again, I'll bring up Word in a minute, and we'll go through the specifics. Matt, pages, what are you asking?
No, I was just wondering if Grammarly has Mac support, and I'm looking for it right
Oh,
now
I don't know.
because I think those people are the expensive fruity computers.
Okay. Well, I'm sure if not Grammarly, there are other grammar scanning programs. And I'm sure, I'm not familiar with them, I'll be honest, but I'm sure they've got to be competitive and do similar functions. So that's something you may need to look at. In Grammarly, if you accept all the changes, can you go back? Yeah, Andy, I'm going to talk about the review function in a second. So yeah, if you leave review on, and you know what, we'll go back at the end. Yeah, if you're using review, it does keep the changes that you've made in Grammarly. So the review function keeps track of edits. If you are, like when I go through and do the editing, it will show the edits, whether a strikeout and an addition or any add-ins or whatever it may be, commas, quotation marks, question marks, any of that stuff. Okay, sorry, I was just looking at a couple of the comments here. All right, it's helpful, and I'll show you how it works. If you have if you have beta readers, for example, you can send them a copy of the document, and you can have multiple people editing it. If they're doing it sequentially, not concurrently, you'll see all of them, and we'll get to that in a minute. And there's also a place for comments. So it may not necessarily be an actual edit, but somebody may say, well, I'm not sure who's talking here, or I kind of lost track here. So you know what, we can actually go back and do it with this one. Now, review, track changes. Oh, you know what? Hold on. Just occurred to me, I have one that has, there we go. That's what. Track changes is highlighted here. So you either have it turned on or off. You want it when you finish your document and you're going to send it on to somebody, or you're going to work on it, you want that turned on. And there are various levels of simple markup, no markup, all the markup, everything. And again, that I generally leave all the markup on because I want to see everything that all the edits that other person did. Now, this is again a section that went out to a friend of ours, one of our beta readers, and in blue here, the strikeouts. So that this is the additions, these are the strikeouts. And just to give you an idea, if you go to original, it takes that all away. So now you can see it the way it was without their edits. Let's go back to all markup. Okay.
You might slide it over.
No, we'll talk about what's in the column in a minute. So the edits that she did turned up in blue. Now, if you or somebody else, before you've accepted or rejected any of the comments, add in more comments, or was blue, it will be in a different color. So if you send the document again, sequentially, after one person is done, then you'll have all of their comments, all of their edits, and you'll be able to see. Otherwise, you have to, you can just bring them up side by side. Now, so what do we do with this? This comment here, the car was blue. I decide, no, I don't like that. Up here in the header, you have accept, and here you have reject. If you use the drop down, accept this change, or reject this change. So right now we're looking at that, the red text there, the car was blue. No, I don't like that. It's gone. Here, if we say, all right, yeah, let's keep that, then just accept this change, and now it just becomes part of the text. Now, you can go back, just like anything else on any other document. You can't go, oh, no, I didn't mean to do that. If you click on, without doing the drop down, it defaults to accept and move to next. So if I'm going through, I can just, yeah, I like that, accept and go to next, accept and go to next. Same thing on reject. No, I'm not going to, oh, wait, that should have been left in, so then you can go back and do that. And go through the whole document. What you also might want to do is before you send your document to somebody, make sure track changes is on and lock tracking, so that you just want to make sure when you get it back, all of their changes will be tracked and they couldn't turn it off, or accept or reject any comments, accept or reject any edits. I believe I haven't done it, but I think it's a password protected thing. So it just enables you to have that control. Now, also, if you may have noticed on the right here are some columns. You can put in a comment, and that's what these are. So if I put the cursor here on this word, new comment, I don't know what that is. Now, I don't really want to edit it, and I wouldn't want to put that comment in the text, but I want that comment somewhere so we can deal with it. Now, you can also, once you go through them, boom, it's gone. There's another, if you're going to be working back and forth with somebody, or, for example, if you're editing somebody else's and it may be coming back to you and they want to give you an explanation, or vice versa. Let me slide this over all the way. You can do a reply if it's going back to them. This is a gun. So now when they see it, they'll know. This is one of our friends that we're always amused, because she has virtually zero knowledge of pop culture. So we're all getting a lot of those. Now, resolve, you can either change it or just leave it as is. And if you click resolve, what'll happen is that highlighting goes away, but the comments are still there but grayed out. So when they look at it, they can say, oh, okay, you dealt with it, and there's your answer. So using the review function we find extremely helpful, even if I'm just doing edits for Sue, and in particular when you send it out, because when I have other people doing it, what this person had done on the previous book, she didn't know how to use the review function, so she would, in the text, instead of adding things, she would add text, and then she'd go back and highlight it. So then when we went back to work on it, either we had to transfer the edits manually to another copy of the file, or go through and highlight and take out the comments that were in the text rather than in the column. So fortunately, she's gotten much better at that. Scribophile, someone is asking about. And I don't know, because I don't even know what that is. All right. I think that pretty well covers the review function. Again, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds. What do we got? Okay. I'll give me a date. All righty. Yeah, roofie. She didn't know what roofies were, so I don't know. I thought that was fairly common knowledge, so that kind of we both found that fairly amusing. All right. Now I'm going to turn this. I'm going to go back to original here. And I just want to put it back the way I accepted a correction. All right. Now I lost where it went. Okay. Oh, you know what? No, sorry, it's not here. Where's my short one? Is it here? Okay. Now let's go back here for a minute. And word read aloud. This is something that, again, we've found extremely helpful. You make changes, you make edits, you read something 42 times, and at some point your brain begins to correct any errors that are still left in it. So there is a technique, again, I had in a college writing class that read your piece out loud, and you may hear things that you don't when you're reading it silently. The problem with that is a lot of us, as you go along, you kind of start slowly dropping off the reading out loud and just reading in your head again. Now, in the review function, there's a read aloud button. And if you're not finding it, read aloud. Whoop. Aloud, spelling counts. So you can find it that way too. And Matt, do me a favor, just let me know, make sure the audio is coming through when I run this.
Not a problem. It's also under review.
Yep. Yeah, you can look for it there, and
there it is,
on the review tab, it's right there.
Mm-hmm.
He wore a Toscana sheepskin coat over a black turtleneck cashmere sweater and black turtleneck cashmere sweater and black
Sounds
jeans.
good.
He had taken particular care to look attractive to Miranda, including cologne from a perfumery in Paris. He took the
Okay. One of the things that also is helpful is when you run that, and I took that comma out.
look attractive to Miranda, including cologne from a perfumery.
Let me put it back in. It's a subtle difference.
Attractive to Miranda, including cologne from a perfume.
But if that comma wasn't there and it whips right through, you'll notice the comma's missing, usually. So that can be helpful. We like it a lot. Again, it's time consuming, but we've come up with a lot of things, especially after we've made some edits, made some changes, redid it again, thought we had it all, and then ran it through, read aloud, and went, oh, wait, there's a half of the sentence that was there originally and a half of the new sentence, and together it doesn't make sense. So that can help out a lot. All right. Pronunciation will sometimes be entertaining. It gets the vast majority of the pronunciation right, but some of them are, again, kind of amusing. All right, and the last thing just want to talk about a little bit is Word itself has a spelling and grammar check. It's not as extensive as Grammarly or some of the other standalone programs, but it can also work for you. Because if you already have Word, then you have it free. So you have underlined in blue, underlined in red. Here it's, if you click on the word and then right click, it will, well, there you go. It will give you options. It may or may not be, because the first one, it's turning it plural, and it's not a plural. It has particular problems with any non-English words, so just be aware of that. Here's another one that it found. I mean, it's pretty clear what it is, but the comma's in the wrong place. An extra comma, just a typo. We'll take that out. Here, sometimes slips by, especially I've got the text, 14 point text, so if it's not the size you normally read, sometimes it's hard to pick those out. Now, one of the, again, common things that I noticed doing the editing for the anthology is 2 spaces after the period, like we all used to do, instead of just 1. It's not finding that. Actually, I think I just added no. The function in Word won't come up with those. So those are things that we want to catch. Easiest way to do that, again, there, you can find it up in the tabs, but I want to find replace, because what do I want to do? I want to replace 2 spaces after the period with 1 without too much work. So what do? Up in we want to find space, space. We want to replace it with space. You can do replace all, and it'll just do them all in bulk, or if you want to check through them because it may be a word you want to look at that you've used too many times. So find next. Here it is. Replace. It fixed it. Then it goes to the next one. Here's another one. Replace. Replace. Or replace all, and it'll tell you, okay, we made all the replacements. It also is helpful, and again, I don't know if he, now I've used he too many times, so I want to use the name Sam. So again, same thing. We can go through find next. Oh, well, that's a problem because that's not what I'm looking for, and I'll show you how to fix that because you don't want to be, HE is in a lot of words. But it did find one. That's just he standalone. We didn't start at the beginning of the document, so yes, we want to start all over. So here's a he, replace. You can fine tune this more. If it's a name, for example, you're looking for that you want to make sure is spelled correctly, or maybe you want to replace that name with a different name, or one of the things that I had to go back and search for was the use of mom and dad. Sometimes it's capitalized, sometimes it's not. So to make sure that it was right in the right places, you can match case and search for lowercase dad, and I'll want to replace uppercase. Now, this is one that I wouldn't do replace all because it's not always applicable. Find whole words only, and that would come in like we were just looking for he's, he. You don't want to find the HE within other words. So we'll do find whole words. You can, if you've ever done wildcard searches, it's very simply whatever letters go star. And so anything that starts with G-O and has anything following it, or the other way, that's what wildcards are. So there you go. Another find function is just Control F, and that's simply find. There you go, he, and it'll just find all the he's for you and highlight them. But you can't fine tune this one. And I found this helpful when I'm looking for a word that was repeated too many times. So I'll type that word in there and it'll find them, and then I can decide at each point in that particular section. Or if I'm looking for, you can do a whole phrase. Either would. So if you start at the beginning, so it will find that phrase. And again, there may be phrases that you've used repeatedly that you want to search through. All right, I believe we've gone through all the bullet points. So again, like anything else, any other tool, use it, you just have to use it judiciously. In particular, Grammarly, review function, and read aloud have been extremely helpful. All righty. Anybody have any question? Comments? If not, we're good.
Joel, could you walk through your editing process, maybe just a simplified version of it? What do you do from the start of getting a manuscript to the finish? You know, what does that general
Okay,
process look like to you?
sequence. Okay. Well, let me generally, and let me run through first. If I'm working on Sue's book, I'll go through and read maybe 4-5 chapters. Now, some people read through an entire manuscript and then go back and work on the editing. My brain won't work on that because if I see something, I got to fix it right then and there. So I'll do it in chunks. I'll do a number of chapters. Once I've gone through that edit, then Sue and I go through it together, accept or reject any of the edits, make any changes, and then I'll run that part through Grammarly. One of the things that will happen is, again, like I talked about Grammarly, I don't accept all the changes when I'm working further into the text. All right, I've already edited and gone through and checked out the first 10 chapters. Well, when I start with 11, there may still be things that Grammarly found in those first 10 chapters that it's going to find again. So they'll be there in your bottom line count. So I don't really worry about that too much. Once we've gone through the edits, Grammarly, then we'll do read aloud. And at that point, that's when I'll send it out to beta readers or somebody that's helping us with the editing. Now, when I'm doing, like on the anthologies, somebody else's stuff, similar with the short stories, again, I will edit as I go through it. I don't read all the way through it and then go back and do the edits. So I'll do the edits as I'm going through, and once I'm done, I'll run it through Grammarly. Now, one of the things that, and again, we'll for future anthologies, I want to write up a sort of guidelines. I do that much more judiciously than I would with Sue stuff, because she's sitting right here. So I don't want to add or take out a gazillion changes that Grammarly found, unless it's obviously something that really needs to be corrected, because a lot of that is simply style, and I don't want to dictate to somebody how their stuff should read. And then, once that's done, often, not always, but often I'll do the read aloud too, and then send it back to the author for them to review and accept or reject those changes.
Awesome. Thank you. Does anybody have any additional questions for Joel regarding editing or whatnot? All right. Joel, thank you so much for your time and your sharing your knowledge. I think this was very helpful. I'll go ahead and stop the recording right now.